She stopped correcting me 3 weeks before she left. I didn't notice at the time. I thought it meant things were finally getting easier between us. I want to tell you about the moment I found out how wrong I was. My name doesn't matter for this story, but I'll tell you I was 34, married for 6 years, and convinced I understood my wife better than anyone else could. Her name was Marin. We had a routine that felt, to me, like proof of a good marriage. Coffee at 7. She'd ask about my day at dinner, and I'd talk for 10 minutes about work while she nodded and ate. On weekends, I picked the restaurants. I picked the movies. Not because I was controlling, at least that's what I told myself, but because she always said she didn't have a preference. "Whatever you want" became her most common sentence in our house. I used to think that meant she trusted me. I used to think easygoing meant happy. I worked in logistics, the kind of job that eats your attention in small bites all day. I'd come home tired, and Marin would already be there, usually reading on the couch, usually calm. I remember thinking that calm was just her personality. Some people are loud, some people are quiet, and I'd married someone quiet. It never occurred to me that quiet could be something a person builds on purpose, like a wall built one brick at a time until you can't see over it anymore. The strange part, looking back, wasn't anything loud or dramatic. It was smaller than that. It was the fact that she stopped disagreeing with me. Early in our marriage, Marin used to argue with me about small things, which route to take, whether a movie was actually good or just popular, whether my mother had been rude at dinner or just tired. I used to find those arguments annoying in the moment and, honestly, kind of enjoyable in hindsight. It meant she had opinions. It meant she was still in the room with me, not just physically, but the way you're only fully present with someone when you're willing to push back on them. Sometime in our 5th year, those disagreements got quieter. Then they stopped almost entirely. I noticed it the way you notice weather changing, gradually, and then suddenly you realize it's a different season. I remember one dinner specifically. I'd made a comment about her sister, something dismissive, the kind of thing she would have pushed back on 2 years earlier. Instead, she just said, "Maybe," and kept eating. I remember thinking, at the time, that I'd won. That's an ugly thing to admit, but it's true. I thought I'd worn down some rough edge in her, and I liked it. I thought marriage was supposed to smooth people out, make them easier to live with, easier to predict. What I didn't understand, what I refused to understand, maybe, was that Marin hadn't been smoothed out. She'd gone quiet. And there's a difference between peace and silence that I hadn't learned to hear yet. The moment everything cracked open happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I'd come home late from a work thing, nothing important, just drinks with coworkers I didn't even like that much. Marin was at the kitchen table with her laptop, and when I walked in, she didn't ask where I'd been. She used to ask. Not out of suspicion, just out of habit, the way you ask someone about their day. That night she just said, "There's food in the fridge if you're hungry," without looking up. I sat down across from her and, half out of guilt, half out of curiosity, I asked what she was working on. She said it was nothing, just some paperwork. I let it go. I remember feeling a small, strange discomfort, like walking into a room and knowing something had been moved but not being able to say what. 2 days later I found the folder. I wasn't looking for it, I want to be clear about that, because for a long time after, I wondered if some part of me had been looking without admitting it. It was just sitting on the kitchen counter under some mail, an ordinary manila folder, the kind you'd use for tax documents. I opened it because I was curious, and because 6 years of marriage had taught me there were no real secrets in our house. Inside were apartment listings. A budget spreadsheet, her name only. A printed email from a lawyer's office confirming a consultation for the following week. I sat with that folder for a long time. Not panicking, not yet. Just reading the same line over and over, consultation regarding dissolution of marriage, like if I read it enough times it would rearrange itself into something else. When Maren got home, I didn't yell. I didn't even bring it up right away. I remember asking her, very calmly, how her day was. She said it was fine. I asked what she wanted for dinner. She said, like she always did, whatever you want. And that's when it hit me, not the folder, not the lawyer, but that sentence. Whatever you want. I'd heard it 1,000 times and never once asked myself what it actually meant. I'd assumed it meant she was flexible. It never occurred to me that it might mean she'd stopped believing her preferences mattered to me at all. I asked her about the folder that night. She didn't get defensive, didn't cry, didn't raise her voice. She just looked at me with an expression I can only describe as tired, not sleepy tired, but tired in a way that had been building for years. She said, "I stopped arguing with you because I got tired of losing." Not the arguments. Just losing. Every time, however small, I'd lose a little more of wanting to say what I actually thought. I asked her why she never told me. I remember my voice cracking on that question, because some part of me already knew the answer before she said it. "I did tell you," she said. "I told you by going quiet. I thought you'd notice. I thought a good partner would notice the silence and ask what it meant, instead of enjoying how easy it made things." I didn't have anything to say to that. I'd spent 6 years mistaking her silence for peace, when really it had been a slow withdrawal, one unspoken opinion at a time, until there was nothing left in the account. In the weeks after that conversation, I found myself replaying old memories with a different lens. The restaurants she never picked. The movies she agreed to without comment. The arguments that used to end with her saying, "You're probably right," instead of finishing her point. I used to file those moments under good marriage. Now I understood they were closer to quiet exit, one small surrender repeated until it became a pattern neither of us named out loud. What struck me most wasn't the discovery of the folder. It was realizing how much I had valued being agreed with over being known. Somewhere along the way, I'd confused compliance for closeness. I'd wanted a partner who made things easy, and I got exactly that, until easy became the sound of someone giving up. We didn't get divorced, not immediately, and I won't pretend this story ends with some dramatic reconciliation scene, because that's not how real repair works. What happened instead was slower and less cinematic. I started asking her actual questions and waiting for actual answers, even uncomfortable ones. I started noticing when she went quiet and treating it as information instead of convenience. It took months before she trusted that her opinions would be welcome again, not just tolerated. What I learned, and what I think about often now, is that silence in a relationship is rarely empty. It's usually full of things a person has decided aren't worth saying anymore. We assume peace looks like agreement, like nodding, like, "whatever you want." But real peace is built on the freedom to disagree without fear of losing standing in someone's eyes. I had mistaken her retreat for her contentment, because that interpretation was easier for me to live with. I think about how many other people mistake quiet for calm, in marriages, in friendships, in families. How many of us hear, "It's fine," and choose to believe it, because believing it costs us nothing, while asking a real question might cost us comfort. I still wonder sometimes how long she'd been rehearsing that word, "whatever," before I finally heard what it was actually saying. If someone in your life has gotten quieter around you over time, I'd ask you to sit with that thought for a moment. Not with guilt necessarily. Just with honesty. Silence is rarely nothing. Sometimes it's the loudest thing a person can tell you, if you're willing to listen for it.